Hey folks, welcome back to My Kitten Reads. My name's Eleanor, and this is my April wrap-up in which I read 23 things in April. Well, technically it was 26, but according to Goodreads it's 23. There were some issues with actually finding individual issues of comics. So 23 things officially for April. Oh my goodness, that's like over twice what I usually manage. Yes, there was a readathon, but that's not just it. There was also the fact that I had a lot of uni stuff to read, and then there was also the fact that I went on a bit of an audiobook kick. But I'm going to try and get through all of this stuff as soon as I can. So the first 4 things that I read in April were short stories by Edgar Allan Poe. So I read 4 of them. This is the final 4 that I had to read for uni. They were The Telltale Heart, The Premature Burial, The Mask of the Red Death, and Silence, a Fable, which I think I had previously read for another class a couple of years ago. But yeah, so 4 separate short stories. I don't remember them all that clearly because I've come to the conclusion that Poe, really not my thing. But they were basically horror stories of various different sort of tropes. Well, they were probably his tropes to start with, but none of them really affected me all that much. So that was those. I can get through those really quickly. The next thing I read was, again for uni, Lady Audley's Secret by Mary Elizabeth Braddon. I really liked this novel. This was one of my top picks so far for uni. It's the story of a family, so the Audley family, and Lady Audley is the second wife. She used to be a governess in the village before she married, but she has a secret. I picked The Secret fairly early, but it's pretty much a detective novel. It's one of the very first, I think, detective novels. And it's Lord Audley's nephew, Robert, discovers he has suspicions after an event happens and a person goes missing. And he doesn't want it to be true because he loves his uncle very much. But his sense of justice can't stop him from investigating and trying to figure out what exactly Lady Audley's secret is. So, yeah, like I said, I figured it out really quickly, but I actually really, really enjoyed the book. So that's Lady Audley's Secret. And then it's when I started my binge of audiobooks because I had a really intense period at work at the start of April, and so I read a lot of audiobooks while I was working. And so I reread The Women in Black by Madeline St. John. I've talked about this before. I discovered this last year. It's an amazing book set in Sydney in 1960 about a group of women who work in a department store in ladies' cocktail frocks and in ladies' model gowns. And it's just adorable, and I just love it, and I love the audiobook. It's really, really great. So I really, really recommend this book if you want something sort of sweet and just about ordinary women living ordinary lives, but in different ways, because the characters are all very different, but they're pretty much all women. Then then there was more audio, which I don't have a copy of, in that I listened to Let Sleeping Princes Lie by Tansy Wayne Roberts. This is her most recent Castle Charming story that she does on her podcast, Sheep Might Fly. And so it finally finished up in April, and I sat down and listened to the whole thing because I'd been saving it up. And so this is the 3rd Castle Charming story. And in this one, you find out more about the Queen who has been asleep for many, many years, and the royal family discovers a lot about each other. And everything's left in a little bit of a mess at the end. So, but it's again, Tansy playing with fairy tales and fairy tale tropes and turning them upside down. So that was really awesome. Then we go back to university stuff, and The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. Wasn't a fan. It's a sort of a novella-length story. It's a ghost story. I don't think I really got it. Apparently there's a whole bunch of stuff, criticism, which looks at sort of child pornography and abuse and stuff, and I read the story and I was like, where did they get that from? Like, I don't understand. And I just didn't really like The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. Following that, we go back to my audiobooks, and because I built up like 6 credits, I went and I spent them all. And so one of the ones I picked up is The We Free Men by Terry Pratchett, read by Stephen Briggs. I think it's Stephen someone. And anyway, so this is the first of the Tiffany Aching books. I need to really get finished with this series. I've only read the first two, so I thought I would reread the first two on audio. And so I reread The We Free Men, which was adorable, and I love it. And I absolutely love the Pixies. They're adorable and Scottish, and I love them. And Tiffany's an amazing character. Very, very sensible and very, very witchy. So that was fun to reread. And then the next two are, again, audio rereads. So I reread them on audio. And that was Every Heart a Doorway and Down Among the Sticks and Bones by Sean Maguire. These are the first two in the Home for Wayward Children series, which you know how much these books mean to me, especially Every Heart a Doorway. So Every Heart a Doorway is the first book, which is a bit of a murder mystery. At this school, when this new girl comes and has an asexual character, and as well as a trans character, and then there's a bisexual character in this, which is Down Among the Sticks and Bones, and it's the prequel to Every Heart a Doorway, and it's the story of Jack and Jill and their time in the moors, which is the world that they went into. And it's very much about bad parenting and parents trying to force children into a certain mould. So I reread both of these on audio. Woo! We're still going. And then I read this, which is Chaos Choreography by Shauna Maguire. Again, another Shauna Maguire book. This is the fifth of the Encrypted novels, which is the series of hers that I am absolutely loving. This is her sort of light-hearted urban fantasy one about a family of cryptozoologists who are hiding from the Covenant, who want to kill them because they betrayed the Covenant, because they believe that cryptids don't need to be all slaughtered. In fact, they're important to the ecology. And so this is the fifth book, and the third book involving Verity. Verity returns, and she's a ballroom dancer. So she'd given up pretty much ballroom dancing after the first two books, and then in this book she gets a call from the producers of the dance reality TV show that she had come second on in her season, and they say, "We're doing a All Stars, can you come?" So she's like, okay, this is my one chance to go back to ballroom dancing and just make sure that, you know, my decision is final, that I don't want to, you know, that I want to go into this cryptid stuff. And then people start dying. Oops. And Aislinn mice, my favourite Aislinn mice, are there, and plenty of other awesome characters. And it's just fun, and I ended up nearly flinging the book across the room when I got to the climax because I was so excited, because it was dancing and fighting and magic, and I was like, ah! So yeah, really loving this series. And so yeah, Chaos Choreography. Woo! And then we come to all the books that I read during the readathon. So I read River of Teeth by Sarah Gailey, which is a really awesome novella, which is an alternate history in America if they had actually decided to import hippopotami for meat, and then those hippopotami went feral. And so this is the story of a group of people who are taking a job to get rid of the feral hippos from a dam, but they all have ulterior motives. They're also a very diverse cast, including a character that is, I guess, agender, uses they, them pronouns, and that's a really sort of action-packed and fun, but also dark story. But I really, really liked River of Teeth. Then we have The Refrigerator Monologues by Catherine Valenti. This is a novella which is a whole bunch of women who form the Hellhath Club. They all are dead, except for one of them. They get together in Dead Town to talk about the fact that they were the girlfriends of superheroes who got fridged. And so this is them telling their stories. You know, they may have died, but yes, they had their own story, and it wasn't centered around the superhero. So this is the women who have died telling their story, and it's really, really awesome. Well, yeah, I know I'm breezing through these quickly, I hope. All Systems Red by Martha Wells. This is another Tor.com novella, and this is the first in the Murderbot Diaries, and it is about a security bot who has hacked their own programming in order to gain control of their own selves, so they don't have to take orders, but they're hiding the fact that they don't have to take orders, and really they're only using their freedom to watch soap operas. So, and then they're on a mission, they've been rented out to this survey mission, and things start to go wrong, and they have to figure out what's going wrong, protect the members of the mission, and it's all about sort of autonomy and what autonomy really means. So for an artificial intelligence, and so that's All Systems Red by Martha Wells. Again, really loved it. Whew. Okay, we then have The Unstoppable Wasp, Volume 1, Unstoppable, which I really do, I need to double check, but I couldn't find any further Unstoppable Wasp in my comic store, so I think this is the only volume. It's by Jeremy Whitley, and it's really awesome. It's the previously unknown daughter of Hank Pym, who has been raised by Hydra, by the Red Room. She's escaped, she's become the Wasp. Her dad is missing, presumed dead, so she's living in his house, becoming an American citizen, and running around finding other girl scientists to join her girl scientists club, because girl scientists are amazing. And because the main list of the smartest people in the world is pretty much all men, until this little girl had accidentally taken a test that she wasn't supposed to and like beat them all. So this is Nadia, the girl Wasp, trying to make a girl scientist club, because it's awesome. So that was really good as well. Okay, and then I also finished rereading The Bloody Chamber and Other Stories by Angela Carter. This was narrated by Amelia Fox and Richard Armitage. They kind of alternated stories, and I do love Richard Armitage. He's got an amazing voice. But yeah, so this was again a reread for me. A whole bunch of dark retellings of fairy tales, very often feminist tellings of fairy tales, and yeah, so again, loved it, and the audio book was really, really good. I really, really recommend it. And then the last few things, so I read 8 single issues of Star Wars Rogue Squadron from the 90s by Michael A. Stackpole, which is 2 4-issue stories. So in my list, this is actually counting as 5 things, because on Goodreads, I found entries for the first 4 issues, but then the rest of the series is only in the volumes. So even though I'm reading them in single issues on Comixology, they're going to go on Goodreads as volumes from now on. So it's technically 5 things, even though I actually read 8 issues. So that's awesome. It's very nostalgic for me, even though I've never read the comics before. Michael A. Stackpole wrote the Rogue Squadron books, with Aaron Alston writing the Wraith Squadron books. And so the writing style is something I'm very familiar with. And a lot of the characters actually do show up in the Rogue Squadron books, although the comics is actually set before that. So, so a lot of the characters that Wedge knew, that just turned up for like one book, like for example Elskar Laurel, who turns up in the Back to War book, this is where Wedge first meets her. And so this is 2 adventures straight after the Battle of Endor, and it's Rogue Squadron running missions, trying to figure out, fighting against the Empire and working for the Rebellion. And it's really fun, and I love it, and I cannot wait to read more. And then, so those 2 things, those 8, whatever, 5 to 8 things, depending on how I'm counting them. And then the last thing that I read was Uncanny Magazine Volume 17, which was really awesome. I actually really liked a lot of the stories, although off the top of my head, I can't actually think what they were, because I've read so much. But it was a really good issue. Out of the like 6 or so short stories, I think I really, really liked at least 4 of them. Yeah, so that was really, really good. Sorry, I read them as part of the readathon and they're just going over my head. But that is what I read. Those are the 20, technically 26, but counting as 23 things that I read in April. I am way ahead on my Goodreads challenge for the year. The rest of my challenges, I didn't do so great. this time round. I read one book that was part of a series. Well, technically I read 2 books that were part of the series. Well, 4 actually, but some of them are rereads. So I read one new book that was part of a series and extending the series that I'm reading. And at least, I think, 4 of them had LGBT protagonists or co-protagonists. So that was really good. But I don't think I read anything by an author of colour. There were probably some authors of colour in the Uncanny magazine, but it's edited by Lynn and Michael Thomas, and so that doesn't count. But yeah, and I don't think I didn't read any biographies, and I didn't read any collections of short stories. Well, actually, no, yes, I did read one, but The Bloody Chamber, but that was a reread, so that doesn't really count either. So, it's not one of them that's on my TBR. But yeah, but still, I read heaps and heaps in April, and so hopefully May will go pretty well as well. And hopefully this video isn't too long. I'll see you all again next week. Alright, bye.